A decade ago, the UK made a bold leap into public cloud.
It was basically the predetermined answer. Cloud is what you're going to do. That's your end state vision. And anyone who thought otherwise was effectively ridiculed because how dare you say it, because cloud gives us the agility, it's perfection, it can do anything.
We moved fast. Some said too fast. And now we're staring down a new frontier, artificial intelligence. Now we must reconcile our tech optimism with behavioural realism.
AI has an opportunity to dramatically change the economic future of our country.
We have a chance to shape something transformative if we choose to build, not just buy.
We have things like the AI action plan. We have a lot of investment coming into things like data centres.
But are we prepared to regulate it, to own it, and to protect what matters most?
The UK's approach is pro-innovation by definition. So the UK looks like it's promising a far more, let's say, nimble or flexible approach to regulation without legislation.
This isn't just about tech. It's about sovereignty, about the UK economy, and trust. As my journey across the UK continues, it's clear that conversations about AI are no longer theoretical. From government corridors to boardrooms, the question is now, how do we turn promise into progress before the moment passes us by?
The promise of migrating to the cloud and how that's going to save you lots of money. You know, the technology is always going to be up to speed, it's always at the leading edge. It will help you develop applications, etc., faster. The promises of what could be achieved is not always a reality.
To be very brutal, I think the UK government messed up buying cloud.
We had a huge UK service provider market delivering infrastructure as a service type propositions to the market. And then you look at what the UK government did was they then shifted to a cloud first, and that decimated, it put a massive hand grenade amongst the whole managed service provider market. And all those roles have gone, all those companies have pretty much gone now.
The UK public sector has concentrated almost all of its cloud on two suppliers. Government is massively locked in. It's almost got its back against a corner.
In most simplistic terms, it was basically the predetermined answer was cloud is what you're going to do. And so it was like whatever you thought, cloud was the answer. So it's now a case of how do you get there as fast as possible. And that was pushed by, it doesn't matter whether it was systems integrators, analysts, resellers, everyone was pushing the same thing, which is that's your end state vision. And anyone who thought otherwise was effectively ridiculed because how dare you say it, because cloud gives us the agility, it's perfection, it can do anything.
The cloud was sold as inevitable, and for some, costly missteps followed. Now, AI is being cast in the same light, but this time, the stakes are much, much higher.
There is a very real moment in saying that this is going to open up a lot of the, hopefully the solutions to the challenges that we faced as a country: low economic growth, low productivity, declining public services, increased expenditure on the state, and as a result, higher taxes for people. And, you know, we've been in that state really since 2007 to some degree, since post-financial crisis.
If you go and look at the productivity stats since the early to mid-2000s, we've sort of flatlined. I think we are anywhere between 18-20% less productive than the US as an example. AI has an opportunity to dramatically change the economic future of our country. I genuinely believe that. It could mean that new businesses are created here. It could mean that we are able to put more money through taxes and economic growth back into public service. It could provide a massive productivity gain almost in every walk of life that we operate within.
This isn't just about smarter tools or faster services. Around the world, nations are waking up to AI being the next source of global power.
Every nation state is looking at AI and thinking about it as the next industrial revolution. And the UK government doesn't appear to have missed that calling and are building ambitious plans. Getting that right, I think, is critical for the future of our country.
The opportunities of this technology. This is the global race of our lives.
The cloud taught us hard lessons in speed, dependency, and oversight. Now, as the UK turns to AI, will we move with more wisdom or repeat the behaviours of the past?
The UK was one of the first to define its national AI strategy. And it clearly defined key strengths or key areas to focus on as healthcare and defence. Education was also important.
You know, the UK are genuinely getting behind this. There is a sense of belief here. If only we could sort of organise ourselves in the right way to start to see those wins and get those results, you know, wouldn't it be a great thing?
In the UK, we have things like the AI Action Plan. We have a lot of investment coming into things like data centres. You know, we have a lot of focus going on into civil service reform and the productivity of the state, including in areas, again, particularly like healthcare.
Within government, generally the theme of what they want to do is actually less of the more nefarious side of things, which is the job destruction. It's actually more about how can they use it to deliver change in a positive way to help society. But they're struggling with the same thing at the back end of it, which is we know we could, we just don't know if we should.
The UK's AI future isn't limited by talent or technology. It's shaped by values and what kind of future we're willing to build and for whom.
How do they measure the impact? And that impact is so many different angles. It's not just my favourite subject, sustainability. It's the broader societal impact of these things. How does it spiral out? And they are also looking at what is the right way to build them, what is the right way to consume them, how should they be delivered. And there is actually, for the first time in a long while, I'm seeing a genuine desire to try and support the UK economy on this as well.
We are yet to see a clear statement on where the big productivity gains will be, where the UK has an edge in applying AI to a particular sector. So what is it that UK plus AI gives us something that's world leading? We don't have a good answer to that yet, in my view.
Fundamentally, we need new AI businesses to start and build in the UK, because it will be those organisations that push the boundaries and create new opportunities for better citizen experiences, better government services, but also are the ones which will be the catalyst for more inward investment into the UK. And when you think about the requirement of, well, how do I make those conditions great or viable in the UK? There are all sorts of considerations. You know, do you have access to power, data centers that can run the technology stacks, to the equipment, to the skill level? And that is going to take a national effort.
If we want to grow the UK economy and grow the UK tech society, we need to be able to be willing to spend the money with them in the first place. We can't have the hypocrisy of saying, we're absolutely going to grow it, and I'm going to grow it by putting all my money offshore.
True sovereignty isn't just political, it's digital. And it begins where our data lives and who gets access to it. This is an imperative if we are to own and shape our AI future.
Call it a national grid of AI, you know, that makes it accessible for all. And the benefit of doing so would be to retain a lot of the great talent that's already resident in the UK, you know, whether it's in commercial or even across our universities, etc., rather than seeing them being attracted by a paycheck and working, for a non-UK organisation. And I think the way to bring it together is some through cohesive purpose, but also this sense of belief that we can, maybe even build a UK hyperscaler, coming out of the UK to challenge, the usual suspects. And therefore, rather than see the talent pool drain, actually attract the right talent into the UK and boost the economy that way as well.
So when I think about sovereignty, I'm really thinking about where is the opportunity in the future to be competitive on the world stage and leveraging some of the great assets that we already have as a country. We have got a great education system. We have got great entrepreneurial spirit. We have been early adopters of technology. And it feels to me like we've got a government which is really serious about it, where they're looking at bringing down barriers for adoption of AI sovereign-based strategy. I think it's commendable, but I also think it's a necessity.
The technology is more than ready as ever been before for businesses to take advantage of, including governments, right? You also have to be mindful of regulatory expectations and regulatory needs and guidelines in every country. Those are the differentiator factors that actually adds or decreases the speed of adoption.
CEOs, CFOs have been sold on the idea that their business will be utterly transformed and modernized by adopting AI, but they don't really actually have a solid use case for it or any measured outcomes. And one thing you'll see is there is a massive lack of many successful adoption cases where they can show the actual financial return of having deployed the thing they said they'd done.
Whilst some organisations are attempting to apply AI for profit, the nation is developing its AI strategy. This isn't just about big goals, it's about control. Who operates the systems we will depend on, and who sets those terms?
A sovereign AI stack, it is infrastructure built in the right way, make it accessible. And then with the talent retention, development, that should naturally give way to the UK being able to make and develop its own sovereign specific models. Whether it goes into the realms of creating a new foundational model, on a par with what's already out there with Llama, Gemini, Claude, etc., or where the specific industries in the UK, where we're known for in creative industries, in research, those sorts of areas, if they can then take that foundational model and then develop their niche specific models for whatever it might be, then I think that's a great place to be, and then that comes naturally exportable. And whether we choose to open source it or it becomes a commercial thing, who knows? But being able to have the platform to help organisations and research industries deliver that is, I think, a great place for us to be. At the moment, the UK doesn't have that.
We have the talent, we have the ambition, but without the tools to build our own future, innovation risks becoming just another import. Beyond data and infrastructure lies a deeper question. What role should government play in shaping our AI future?
Obviously, within the dominant narrative that we have in this country, which is government can't do entrepreneurialism, it can't get involved in this stuff. I think that's a mistake. And the reality is we wouldn't have half the stuff that we know and love within our society as it stands without government backing some of this technology. So of course it has to be done differently, and social enterprises and the way that government invests in this stuff needs to be thought about differently. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done.
If you'd asked me this a year ago, I would have said there's no point in trying to build a domestic model because of the huge amounts of training costs that had gone in to OpenAI and Anthropic and all the other guys. I think DeepSeek and the breakthroughs that happened there have obviously changed some of the equation for people that might be wanting to build these highly powerful models. And I think the second, obviously, order question of that is the people that are trying to get towards AGI, because The models are obviously one part and they're very powerful today, but if you begin to get to something that resembles AGI, however you want to define it, that gives you a lot of state power. And if you couple that with something like nuclear fusion, I think the geopolitical race for power in the 21st century is over. So I think there is a strong incentive for nation states to be having a domestic ecosystem that is trying to build that.
With enough ambition, the UK could help shape the future of AI, not just use it. But knowing we can and deciding we will are two very different things.
We could pick this up in a heartbeat if we wanted to. So if we were willing to invest the time and the money to do it, we definitely have the skills, we have the capability, and we have the resources to do it. It's about the willingness of consumers to buy that end product. So we need to make that shift. So stop doing what we're doing right now, which is shifting all the money overseas, and start thinking, how do we support that UK economy to create those jobs? Because we could do it tomorrow morning if we wanted to. We're not short of the resources and people.
But progress without principles carries risk. As AI becomes more powerful, how do we make sure it serves society and not the other way around?
We need a lot more regulations and guidelines around the use of AI. And that hasn't come to life yet. AI Sovereignty Act in Europe is a fantastic element that actually gives a lot of guiding principles and rules and regulations around it. But to me, we need a lot more in order to retain the balance and make sure we actually use AI for good use, not bad usage.
We've got a very different approach in Europe, in the European Union, around, for example, the regulation of AI compared to the UK or the US, where regulation is now kind of equated with, well, it's anti-growth and it's anti-innovation, therefore we're not going to regulate. Or if we do, it's going to be very, very light touch. But we have to be aware of what the consequences of those might be.
The UK's approach is pro-innovation by definition. Their regulation on AI, they said, should be sectorally driven rather than the European Union's AI Act, which is a horizontal harmonised act. So the UK looks like it's promising a far more, let's say, nimble or flexible approach to regulation without legislation.
Let's be very clear, if we build centralized compute on clouds where we cannot know that data is staying in our country, then when shit comes to shove, that's going to be a problem.
What happens if we're dependent on a few suppliers that are providing AI tools that may not have any accountability? And that's where it gets really worrying.
Even the world's leading scientists are struggling to keep up. When innovation outpaces understanding, the risks become harder to see and harder to stop.
It's a difficult job being a politician, being a minister or Secretary of State right now, given the speed at which the technology is evolving. They have a very difficult job on their hands keeping up with the technology. When mistakes have been made, they've relied on advice or opinions about the impact of the technology without looking at the evidence behind that opinion. We have many scientific advisors to the government that have opinions about things and they are trusted to give the right advice. But with the speed at which AI is moving, they are being caught short, right? I think we need to know what we're good at. We need to know who we can trust in terms of the real AI experts in the UK. And we need to really think about how we unite the research community, the industrial community, and government agencies to work on a common plan. And then building on the past, building on what has been done before, rather than reinventing the wheel. DeepSeek didn't catch just the scientists by surprise. It caught the big tech companies who have big research teams by surprise, right? So we need to be mindful of that, and I think not rush into giving an opinion to the policymakers. We need to do the research and then come back with the right answer, however quickly we can.
Maybe slightly controversially, I'm not seeing any great leadership from the politicians, not just in this country, but across Europe, I think. maybe even across the world, about how they're going to do it, right? It's not being driven by what can we do with this as a society, driving the outcomes that you might want with it. It's being pushed rather than pulled. And I think we'll end up as a society sleepwalking into something that is an inevitability, and you've not had a chance to shape it, right? I'd like to see businesses that are very much people-focused coming together to drive outcomes, right? This shouldn't be technology-led, this should be outcome-led.
I think the thing that worries me is that society is not set up for the pace of change that might be possible. So you'll see extremely powerful new capabilities coupled with potentially extremely, very deep and fast social change. And again, unless government is far more agile and focused on this as an issue and can work out how to lead people through change, I think, we've seen previous revolts and revolutions around technological breakthroughs that have disrupted livelihoods. And I think you could see, there is a risk that you could see something, large in that way, as the public do not buy into the consequences of a technology that has impacted their lives in a way that they perhaps didn't agree with and feel maybe was a top-down decision foisted on them rather than something that they had social consensus around.
We need to start holding our leaders actually accountable. And that means business leaders as well as political leaders, because they're the ones making these decisions. And the one thing I've seen, the key trends are they push accountability downwards.
We see within government and within the public sector, mistakes get made all the time. And people's feet very rarely get held to the fire for that, for a huge number of reasons. And people move on and move on before the reality of the decision they made sort of hits town. With AI, we're kind of getting into potentially some very difficult sort of legal nightmares where it's arguing, well, the AI did it. The AI had a hallucination, we're not accountable. There are some very fundamental ethical questions around AI that do need to be considered in the context of public service. How do we ensure that we always understand where that accountability chain is?
AI will shape how we live and work, even how we are governed. But without clear rules, clear roles, and clear responsibility, we must ask ourselves, who is steering the ship? It's clear that AI optimism is in full swing, but I've consistently heard how the nation must educate citizens on the realities of AI and the need to bring society on an informed journey. I'm starting to believe that as a nation, we must walk a narrow path towards AI. As my journey continues, I am looking to our AI future and what it will look like for the United Kingdom.